those were the days, my friend. We thought they'd never end. We'd sing and dance forever and a day. We lead the lives we choose. We fight and never lose. For we were young and sure to have our way. La 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 la. La 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 la.
York Hotel was just part of London's folk mythology. Well, it was a cultural phenomenon in a city that did have a very rich artistic culture. It brought a lot of people together. It was a focal point for a lot of vibrant artistic energy, as well as a lot of eccentric characters that used to come to New York. Just a very, very vibrant scene that I don't think is possible today, but it existed at that time.
But this was the only focal point in London where everybody gathered together sort of in one large kind of artistic, zany family, you know, of eccentrics and poets and writers, and you could do anything you wanted. I mean, if you wanted to get up on a table and rant and rave or talk about something or talk about your mother-in-law, you could do it here.
The other day I walked into my bank and asked the manager if I could speak to the loan arranger. He said, "I'm sorry, the loan arranger isn't in. Would you like to speak to Tonto?" I said, "Okay, where's Tonto?" He said, "I don't know, but I think he might be about 120 miles from London in his TP or not TP. That is the question." Thank you.
I heard about it through a friend of mine by the name of Charlie Savage, who was a bohemian character, just a wonderful guy. He told me there were interesting groups playing here, and I just came down with him. I met Eddie and Mo, and I kept on coming on a regular basis. And it felt very at home, a very warm, friendly, open atmosphere, and a lot of writers, artists, interesting people. It was the center of what a lot of great activities.
I used to walk in the side door at the Clarence, and it's just like the backyard to an old farmhouse. And you would walk in, and immediately you would see all these really crummy tables, these really crummy chairs. On the right, there was a Venetian wall mural. In the back, there was a large picture of Queen Victoria. There were pictures of steam engines in this other room. There was a Frederick Banting painting above the bar. And there were all kinds of little things that were framed up, newspaper clippings and just odds and ends. The place was a real schmozzle and a real mix of all kinds of things that had no rationale or interconnection. The place looked as crazy as seeing and hearing the Spasm Band. Nothing really added up in terms of aesthetics. Nothing matched. I've said this before. I think they got all the furniture, you know, just from restaurant auctions and the washrooms. I mean, the place was sort of a dump. And I don't know. I think maybe artists are just attracted to dumps. If it had brass rails and stuff like that, I don't think anything like this would have ever happened at the York Hotel.
Everybody, I got to go, just like a wedding. I said I got to go now. Everybody, I got to go. I tell, I'll pack my bag, and down the road I go.
So I came in and sat down just over there, and I ordered a beer, and I was talking to the lady next door, and we introduced ourselves, and it turned out to be Mayor Jane Bigelow, I was kind of surprised to see her here. It's a pretty dingy place, lots of smoke, lots of rowdies kind of thing, and so I was hooked on the place. You know, I was here about twice a week ever since, I think, until it closed down, and then I bought my last glass of beer, which I've held on to all these years.
I think what I liked best about coming to the York was you could just come by yourself and you'd always find people that you knew here who were friends. It was a good, comfortable place. Hi, Greg. Good, comfortable place to come.
Yes, it was a place to get together because when you're an artist, you work by yourself. So, you know, at the end of the day, you want to go someplace and talk to actual people.
We would go to places to drink, and this was the place we happened to go to. This was fairly close to my studio and to the other ones, and it was a quiet pub. And Eddie and Mo had some class, you know. So we got along with them. We could talk to them. And that was the only pub where that really happened, because we didn't know the owners elsewhere, but we got to know these guys that ran it. It's very unusual. So it just started happening. And because the artists were here, and people like that were here, other people started showing up.
Like my friend who plays guitar. He's on his way somewhere by car, moving so he don't get stuck in the ground. When he plays again, people gonna sing, people are gonna laugh, and they're gonna clap, they'll clap, and they'll sing with their friends. Sing, sing a song with me, a song for friends and friends to be. Sing, sing a song with me, a song that's fresh and green and free.
Well, there was a closeness about it because when we performed there, we were in a really small room, and people would come in the door by your elbow, and if they liked your music, they might sit close to you. If they didn't, they could just go to the back of the room, or they could head into another room and have a couple of beers. And of course, Eddie was always here to greet people, and Mo was always behind the bar, and part of the payment was free beer. But of course, if you drank too much beer, you couldn't perform. It was kind of a catch-22.
La 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 la. La 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 la. Those were the days. Oh yes, those were the days. That's my set. Next up will be the Dixie Flyers. Thank you very much. Woo.
Hello? She's feeling better. Thank you, doctor.
For more information on the Medicaid response systems, call London Medicaid 1-800-463-6425.
Suppose we took identical twins with acne pimples. We washed one daily with soap and water, and the other with Clearasil Daily Face Wash, which removes oil and dirt and helps to fight acne pimples by killing bacteria. Spot the difference. Clearasil Daily Face Wash. It laughs in the face of pimples and pokes a finger in the eye of spots.
Thank you very much and welcome back to the York Hotel. Yes, indeed. For tonight only. We're the Dixie Flyers, so happy to be with you here on such an auspicious occasion. And of course, on a sad note, also, as we might mention, Eddie was our friend. And as I said many times, and with the band, as always said, our mentor, kind of getting us started in this business all over the country, as we have been for several years. And my hat is off to Eddie and Mo and
all the folks here at the York Hotel.
This is a memorial for Eddie Asoff, and because I think all the musicians who ever played here for years and years have a great debt and a great sort of love and affection for Eddie Asoff.
There's a loose, free spirit this evening, which is remarkable. I think given the recent events with Eddie's passing and so on, it's probably more somber than it could have been, but still it's a celebration and it's a tribute to Eddie.
Well, we get up early and we go to the fields, soon start haying and hoeing. Well, we chop down trees and we lay some corn, next the hay needs mowing. We worked hard all week long so we can make a little bit of money. When Saturday comes, we bathe in the creek so we all smell good on Sunday. We all smell good on Sunday. We all smell good on Sunday. Saturday comes, we bathe in the creek so we all smell good on Sunday. Stay out late at the York Hotel, have a hangover on Sunday. Well, Papa says you don't do it that way, cause you ain't worth a darn on Monday. We worked hard all week long so we can make a little bit of money. When Saturday comes, we bathe in the creek so we all smell good on Sunday. We all smell good on Sunday, we all smell good on Sunday. Saturday comes, we bathe in the creek so we all smell good on Sunday.
We began jam sessions here, and from jam sessions, the Dixie Flyers evolved, and that's 16 years and 7 albums later. The eclectic view of the York and the bizarreness of some of the acts and the flavor of the management, such as Mr. Asoff himself and Mo, that typified what the York was all about.
It's nice to be back in the York Hotel. I wish I could remember all the things that happened to me, but I was pretty drunk a lot. And they moved the back parking lot is gone. It's gone. Let's have a nice round of applause for a gentleman who met his wife. He proposed to his wife out in the parking lot, although it's not there anymore. His wife is still here. Mr. Bert Bombeck, give him a lovely hand here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to say that my lovely wife Margaret is here with us tonight from Kirkland Lake, Ontario. My official Northern Bear, right down there, if you will.
And he did propose to me in the parking lot of the York Hotel.
Because I was there when the punk rockers started, Dixie Flyers, Cheeseburger Deluxe, Uranus, Fabulous Sheiks. I remember them all. The fights and the good times. But generally, everybody got along.
All these people are still working. Spasm Band's still going. Dixie Flyers are still going. Eric Stock's still going. Rainey in the theater is still going. Rainey's just got a new book out. Some of the people that worked with Rainey in the theater during the 60s, they're still running places like Pass Marai and the Neptune Theater.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. James Rainey.
Grabbed the bottle of bees and ran. Who stole my bee bottle? Who stole my bee bottle? Did you, Benjamin? Benjamin, if you did, I'll never let you try my new trumpet now. Never, Benjamin. But far away, where Kenneth could never find him, Benjamin took the cap off the bottle. One by one, the great bees flew up and out and off, far away.
Well, I think the artistic community came first. And so that when people came into town to check it out, which they started to do, they would come down to the York Hotel because that's where everybody would be. So if they'd call me up or they'd call up Murray Favreau, well, Murray would say, well, let's go down to the York. You can meet those people down there. And they'd come down and we'd all be here, you see. So Buckminster Fuller came down here because everybody was here, you know. Well, Buckminster Fuller was brought in to lecture in London. And he gave lectures, I think 3 or 4 lectures. And it was natural that on a Monday night they brought him down here. And he came down to hear our band. And he took out his hearing aids because it was so loud, you know. He had 2 hearing aids. It He sat in that room in there.
After hearing all these other musicians in the Spasm Band particularly, I think I evolved into what was the early part of the London Experimental Jazz Quartet, which I formed about 1971. And by that time, I was playing almost totally experimental music. So I had come from a church choir background, you know, to My Fair Lady in high school background, to playing free improvisation by 1970, and I've been doing that ever since.
There is a fabric softener that's as soft as can be. Downy.
Touch it, feel it, it's soft as can be.
Feel the difference. See the difference. Downy gives you luxurious softness. Your family will love it.
Soft as can be.
Downy Sun Rinse Fresh. And April Fresh too. Also available in EnviroPack.
Hello? She's feeling better. Thank you, doctor.
For more information on the Medicaid response systems, call London Medicaid 1-800-463-6425.
The first time I walked in and heard the Needle Spasm Band, I didn't know what to make of it, because all I could see were all these sort of banged up instruments and great big military drums and sort of smashed instruments and homemade kazoos and things that looked like violins but weren't violins. For example, Art Pratton's instrument was called a Pratavarius, and it was a noise band. And I would say in the early 60s, the concept of a noise band, I mean, virtually no one had ever heard of that.
Spasm Band is a bar band. People tend to forget that, but that's what we are as a bar band. A noise band, but a bar band.
We came here because they let us play out in public. You know, it was the only place the Spasm Band could play, because Monday nights was dead at the York. So anything we did was better than what they had already. So they let us play, and Mo would chirrup in the background about how awful we were, and Eddie would go out to the front corridor and talk to the regulars and close the door so he didn't have to listen to us.
The York was a very sleepy place when we first arrived here on a Monday night. Everyone was asleep at the tables, the few who were here. And it just came alive, you know, when we didn't start it, actually. Another jazz band started before us. But people came, they had fun. There was no pretensions. It was a neighborhood pub, and Eddie and Mo were great, and the beer was cheap, and we just played. And people hated us, but they stayed and drank anyway.
Ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to begin by playing I Dreamed I Was Living in Paradise. This piece was played before, but at the time the audience was such that I don't think they were able to receive it properly.
It had the Spasm Band with a non-hostile audience. At that college, they had snowballs thrown in their amplifiers. And in other venues, they're quite definitely hostile. But they had their friends here and their following.
Ladies and gentlemen, our first selection this evening, selection number 1, I Dreamed I Was Living in Paradise. I dreamed I was living in paradise, but I woke from my dream at sunrise, and then I began to realize I was still in London, Ontario. London, Ontario. London, Ontario. I was still living there.
About the Spasm Band, I never really liked them very much, quite frankly, if the truth be known.
The Nilo Spasm Band is a band that only certain people can tolerate, and some people probably will leave when they start, but there are other people who have especially come here tonight to hear the Spasm Band. They're probably the best known band. They're probably the band that created the aura of the York Hotel.
Oh, well, it was a very intense musical scene. In the 60s, there was a lot of avant-garde. I mean, the Nihilist Spasm Band, their existence and the prominence of the York are very closely interconnected. They began here, and they brought the York to prominence, as well as the York bringing them to prominence. In the 70s, it was the birthplace of a lot of other sort of new wave bands, the Demics and Second Thoughts, and just it had like a 2-decade history of bringing a lot of musical acts to prominence.
When the Messrs. Asaph finally threw them out, Greg Curnow said, "Ingrates," because he had got them into Arts Canada and Vogue magazine and all sorts of literary mags. But what cared they about Arts Canada, you see? They had to make a living. But I never forget him saying, "Ingrates."
The Spasm Band stopped playing here in 1969 or 70 when the drinking age changed, and Eddie and Mo decided to change policy and appeal to a younger crowd. And so it was pretty well over for us then. And by that time, the artists weren't here as much. A lot of the artists weren't here. A lot of the artists had left town, but the art scene was shifting.
For strong winds that blow lonely, 7 seas that run high, all the things that don't change, come what may. All our good times are all gone, and I'm bound for moving on. I'll look for you if I'm ever back this way.
If you look at the faces here, you can just
you can sense it, you know, that people had sort of an atmosphere, there was sort of a mystique to the place that can't be really replaced or duplicated, I don't think, anywhere else. Oh no, you don't recreate things like that. They have to happen. You can't recreate them, and you can't plan them either. They happen in a community. They're a community thing that happens, and you can't recreate it. You can't make it happen. It's just got to be there.
But by then would be winter, ain't too much for you to do. And those winds sure will both way out there. For strong winds that blow lonely, 7 seas that run high, all the things that don't change, come what may. All our good times are all gone, and I'm bound for moving on. I look for you if I'm ever back this way.